The defenders are out for Patrick Mahomes and NFL officiating. So happens to be the quarterback where the calls go his way and the NFL in general. Patrick Mahomes says that, no, he doesn't feel like he gets the benefit of the doubt when it comes to NFL officials, saying this: I just try to play football at the end of the day. The referees are doing their best to call the game as fair and proper as best they can. For me, it's go out there, play hard, try to do whatever I can to help win the football game, and then live with the results based on my effort and how I play the game. And that's what we preach here in Kansas City. Good for Mahomes, who's certainly reaping the benefits of this.
I would expect nothing less. I wouldn't expect him to come out and say, yeah, I get a lot of favorable calls from those officials. I really appreciate those guys. All the critiques are warranted. I didn't think he was going to come out and say that.
So here, and I'll explain how the NFL is combating this in a moment. But you've got some media they've been digging to do their research, right?
Mm-hmm.
147 yards. That's 147 more penalty yards for the Chiefs than their opponent over the last 3 years. That's what they're pointing out. Again, that's regular season and postseason. 20 more first downs have been assessed due to penalty yardage against the Chiefs on third or fourth down since 2018. That's another number you can find. That's regular season and postseason. Chad, it's the big moments, though, that I think we're pointing out, the crucial moments. And you have Clay Martin, who's the head ref in the divisional round, who assessed some awful penalties against the Texans this past weekend that helped continue a drive where it ended up being, a 13-play drive that ended up with a touchdown in a one-point game, touchdown Kansas City to put the lead up to 8 points. When Clay Martin officiates, he's 7-0. Patrick Mahomes, 7-0 when Clay Martin is the official. But here comes the NFL. Guess what they've done? Clete Blakeman, here to the rescue. How many losses do you think Patrick Mahomes has for his career?
Oh, my gosh. You're going to have to tell me because I'm trying to think of how many. He started in 2018 for the first time.
It's incredible.
So I'm trying to do the math on the amount of losses. Go ahead and tell us.
26. 6 of the 26 losses have been when Clete Blakeman is the official. The Kansas City Chiefs are 5-6 overall when Clete Blakeman is the white hat. And Clete Blakeman, his crew, now keep in mind, these are like the all-star crews, the combination of all different crews across the NFL. Clete Blakeman's crew during the regular season assessed more unnecessary roughness or personal foul calls against the quarterback than any other crew in the National Football League. So they also assessed more false starts, which is something Buffalo needs to worry about. What do you make of this, Chad? Because I look at it and go, they're defending the integrity of the sport because they don't have they have no transparency when it comes to how their officials are disciplined, how they're graded, and ultimately how they're assessed anything, fines, whatever it might be behind the scenes, because they don't want to disrupt the official union. There is a referee union, and they certainly don't want anyone thinking that anything nefarious is going on. How dare you call them out?
I'm always highly uncomfortable when we get into this world of picking and choosing officiating crews based on history or performance or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So it's a great point you bring up about Clete Blakeman, and maybe Kansas City hasn't had the same amount of luck with him as they have with a Clay Martin or someone else in the midst of a lot of criticisms coming from players, coaches, media members all over the league that cover it. I think about the time where there was an officiating crew that was punished by being assigned a Titans-Dolphins game. And I remember on our old local Nashville radio show, Hutton, we were incensed.
It was one official.
By this. It was one official who was terrible in a game, and he had a primetime game or something like that. They said, for sucking, your penalty is to go to Nashville, and you're now going to be a part of a crew calling a Titans-Dolphins game. And I'm thinking, if I'm an owner of an NFL team, I'm not having that. I'm calling the commissioner and saying, no, we're not going to make a punishment having to go officiate our game. The punishment is getting suspended. Or don't punish them by sending them down to our game. Everybody, it's one of 32. Everyone should be the same. So I do get a little bit uncomfortable with this part of it. I also agree with what Joe Theismann told us yesterday. Have these things reviewed. Let it be reviewable for a coach. If it's that egregious, and if you feel like it's that egregious, you could challenge a 15-yard roughing the passer or whatever the penalty is, because these are game-changing penalties at times. You get a stop on third down, you're going to get the ball back, chance to take the lead, good field position, whatever it may be, and then boom, you get a ticky-tack roughing the passer, unsportsmanlike, whatever the call is. So I want them all to be very good at their jobs. I don't want to know any of their names. I want them to be completely anonymous and so good at their job I barely know that they're there, because they're calling everything that's obvious, and when it's not obvious, it's not called, and you're not throwing a flag if you're in doubt, which they're taught to do when it comes to the quarterback on these plays. That's the way I prefer my officials. I don't want to know them. I want them to be so good that they're completely anonymous. But Hutton, you're bringing up stats and records with one crew versus the other and penalties thrown. And this is stuff that I know every team has someone on staff and multiple people probably that's looking at this when it comes to how games are officiated.
And they're very consistent with certain penalties that they will call throughout the year. Like, you better believe if there's a crew that calls false starts or
holding,
unnecessary roughness, whatever, they're consistent with that week to week. In the postseason, maybe not as much because, again, the crews are kind of mixed and matched a bit. But here's the thing. Even if you review every play, like that Theismann brought up with us yesterday, Chad, the problem is when it comes to unnecessary roughness or roughing the passer, specifically roughing the passer, like you mentioned, they're told, when in doubt, throw the flag. That's the only point of emphasis for a penalty. When in doubt, throw the flag. Everything else, when in doubt, don't. And if you review that play, they're not going to overturn that ever. At least that would be my take, because the flag was thrown. It's really up to the official, then specifically the referee who's throwing that flag most of the time, to keep it in his pocket in the case of what we saw this past weekend with Mahomes. It sucks. I know they're protecting their biggest asset. In this case, it is the face of the league in Patrick Mahomes. I get it. But I'm Chad, I'm not one that comes in and blames officials. I'm not. But I thought what we saw was egregious.
Yeah.
And, what length will they go to protect officials? They issue fines for players who say things in the locker room that they didn't even say, actually. Joe Mixon was fined $25,000 for his post-game comments this past weekend after he's trying to describe or react to what we just talked about. In part, he's fined $25,000 in part because of this benign comment.
Everybody know how it is playing up here. You can never leave it into the ref's hands, but I mean the whole world see, man, like what it is, bro. But it is what it is. Like I said, when it comes down to it, you can never leave it into the ref's hands, man, and things like that. But it's all good though.
$25,000 large for that answer to what was a ridiculous job by the officials in last Sunday's game between the Chiefs and the Texans, where you had the two awful penalties for the Texans, unnecessary roughness and the roughing the passer, set up the Chiefs to score crucial points. But in the initial fine handed down by the league, the NFL attributed this post from TJ Houshmandzadeh to Joe Mixon. We have that they put this in thinking that it was Mixon because SI mistakenly put this on Mixon instead of Houshmandzadeh in their article. Why play the game if every 50-50 calls goes with the Chiefs? These officials are trash and biased. That's from Houshmandzadeh, but the NFL listed this in the fine they assessed Mixon, and he pointed it out on his social media accounts. We have that tweet as well. I'm getting fined by the NFL for what someone else said. What's next? I get fined by them for Connor McDavid cross-checking an opponent on an NHL game? They gave him the maximum fine possible. He continued. I really tried to. They really tried to fine me for the max. That's mind-blowing. Shaking my head. The NFL then rescinded the fine upon learning about the post actually being from TJ Houshmandzadeh. Again, that was incorrectly attributed to Mixon by SI. But then they fined Mixon again for what he said in the locker room. They went back and did it again. So he got 2 fines. One was rescinded.
That's the height of pettiness.
They went back. They rescinded the fine, but have reissued a maximum $25,000 fine for him and his real post-game comments. Total lack of accountability and transparency. And I hope the players keep talking, but this keeps everybody quiet. This is why coaches don't say anything when the media is asking for, a reaction, which is what we want, what the fans want too. You're booing at the stadium for this. And by and large, everyone was booing based on what we saw this past weekend. Even if the Texans don't go on to win the game. I mean, the next conspiracy thing here is, of course, Clay Martin's officiating Texans against the Chiefs. But here comes the overall record of 5-6 Kansas City against Clete Blakeman when the Bills are taking them on with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, that will be the narrative. I'm not buying into that yet, but I mean, maybe the calls go Buffalo's way, and we're sitting here on Monday doing the same thing. I don't want it to be mechanical. I don't want the automatic strike zone in baseball. I don't want everything to be determined by AI. But I like the human element of it. But there's got to be a way to correct what we saw last weekend, and there's got to be a way for the NFL to admit that what happened was really bad.
Yeah, and you got to show a little leeway here. I mean, a team season just ended. They're frustrated. Calls were controversial at best, awful at worst. And what Joe Mixon said, I got no problem with anything he said. He's also mostly talking about we got to do better. Right? If you're going to leave it in the hands of the officials, well, we kind of know how it is up here. I mean, that can be said for a lot of teams that go on the road. You feel that way. You're not going to get a favorable whistle in basketball on the road. You're not going to get the favorable whistle or favorable flags in football games on the road. This is a commonly known thing. And what Joe Mixon said, I got no issue with at all. And when the margins are so thin for success and failure, especially when you're in the playoffs and every team is good.
And you're facing Kansas City.
And you're facing Kansas City. I mean, we could always go back, and you said, I'm not a blame the refs type of guy. And you're not. And there are times where you can blame the refs for a lot, but you could always come back and say, well, if you did this and not that, then you would have won the game. Well, of course. Right? I mean, if you would have got that 4th and 1 in the second quarter and gone on to score, then you just take care of what you can. That's true in every athletic contest, especially in team sports. You can point to a bunch of things along the way and say, well, if this would have happened, that would have happened, you would have won. You had to worry about that call or about the officiating. But you also don't want to be in a situation where margins are super thin and one bad call can completely derail you. Also, granted, a lot of other things you could do under your own control that would have helped not get to that situation, but that's true in every close game. So I thought the officiating was bad. I hate even talking about one crew being drastically different from the other or better or whatever it may be. But I especially hate this level of petty from the NFL, this multi-billion-dollar organization that looks stupid because they did something stupid. And Joe Mixon called them out for being stupid, rightfully, because he's the guy being fined $25,000. And then they're going to be petty and go back and say, well, you call us out, so we're going to find something else you did. Oh, here's this benign quote after the game. We'll fine you for that one, too. I hate that.
Yeah, and
I hate it for Mixon. It's a bad look for the league.
Yeah, I wonder. So here's his latest post. So let me get this straight. NFL fines me $25,000 for something I didn't even say. Call them out for it, and their response was, fine me again for something that's not even a violation without even rescinding the first one. Where's the accountability? Just respect the players, Colt. He's right. And, my issue, again, isn't like let's call out the officials all the time. My issue is with the transparency and the accountability from the league. Because even in the NBA, is it the final 2 minutes, final 2-minute report, final 5-minute report, something about their refs. They give this out each day. I love that. There's a transparency there. And why is it the final minutes of the game? Because that's when the game really starts in the league. But that's when it really matters. And it really matters in the divisional round. And again,
it does.
Clay Martin is doing what he's told to do when in doubt. It sucks. We'll see how it goes between Josh Allen and Mahomes on Sunday. That's going to be a great game.
Yeah, and look, Patrick Mahomes is going to get hit late or legitimately roughed, and there's going to be flags thrown
Yeah.
And that's fine. I don't want every time there's a flag, it's Patrick Mahomes and he's getting special treatment. Let's not go into that land, which I know a lot of you already are. Every time there's going to be a flag thrown around him, even if it's legitimate. I think the more interesting part of this is what we hit on this show on Monday, and that is Patrick Mahomes' culpability in all of this.
Right.
And how he's playing the game and how he is massaging the rules and doing things with the way he's playing to help himself get a flag that otherwise wouldn't be there.
And he's doing it when other quarterbacks aren't doing it to that level.
Right.
I see it more from him. He's acting like he's going out of bounds, stutter step, going back in, trying to fake out the defense, who can't even hit the guy because he's either a quarterback one step and then he's dropping to the ground like he's sliding. All of a sudden, he's no longer a runner. He's back to being a QB. Like, I don't know how do you defend that?
Yeah, I just don't think it's fair play.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a level of a gentleman's agreement when you're playing a sport that there are just certain things you don't do.
That's right.
And that's one of them.
At least he didn't throw the flag for the flop.
Yeah. This has been a primary complaint of mine years ago, Hutton. I liken it to you go to like the local YMCA or a church and you're playing pickup basketball or whatever. Yeah. And the dude that does it, hey, over here. And you just met the guy, right before the game, and it's not even shirts versus skins. And you someone throws it to him and they go the other way for a layup.
Yeah.
That is Bush League.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to tell who's on the other team other than some guys on the outside, other guys are defending. So if you turn and look like someone's in trouble and hey, over here, and it's not funny. Like that's Patrick Mahomes. Hey, I'm going to use the sideline. Nope, psych. Right. I'm going to get 5 more yards. Or I might slide, I might not. I'm going to slide really late, and then you're going to get hit for 15 yards after that. And then I'm going to flop and act like the hit was worse than it was because I know that's going to help me get the flag also.
Yes.
And somebody's going to see this and say, oh, stop complaining. This is the way the game's played. Flopping happens in every sport. That's true. You sell things, you exaggerate things at time in other sports. But if you're consistently doing something in a collision sport like this that violates a rule that is there to protect your health and well-being physically and financially, by the way, so you can continue playing this game and making the amount of money Patrick Mahomes is, that's not the rule to flaunt. Well, that's not the rule to massage in your favor and then to make a spectacle of it. And that's where we're starting to get. And I think we're going to see it again on Sunday.
And I'm fine with protecting the QBs. Like, by the end of the year, we had, 13 or 14 backup quarterbacks playing starting games. I don't want to see that. There aren't 32 legitimate starting quarterbacks in the league right now, even though they start. My overall point is I want to see more transparency. I need the league to acknowledge or not, is this what you mean by protecting the quarterback? Is this the level of play or the level of officiating that you want? And you can't say that if you're a player or you get $25,000 fine. The same thing for a coach. I hate that because if they can't speak out, no one's going to, because they're the ones that are impacted the most. Another quarterback who would take advantage of rules and you would be flagged if you touch the guy. If you look the guy in the eye, you'd probably get a flag. Tom Brady, from the guy that is the best in the NFL right now, Mahomes, to the GOAT, who's being chased by Mahomes for
GOAT status.
For GOAT status. Here is Tom Brady on Colin Cowherd, sarcastically addressing his future as a broadcaster on Fox.
Everything I read on the internet, Tom, is true, and it breaks my heart that we only got to work a year together. You're already leaving, so it's really hard for me. I swear to God, the interweb has you. I don't know where you're going, but you're leaving. Would you address that, please?
It's hard for me too. I thought it was a great run, one solid year. So, there's time for new things, and I figured, this has been totally mastered at this point. Yeah, I don't know where it comes from. I know it always says sources close to Brady or whatever, but I've had the best time at Fox, and I've loved every time going into the booth and working with such great people, starting with my partner, Kevin, everyone in our crew, Z, Roos, Aaron, Tom, who, everyone would probably know a little bit about. But behind the scenes, there's so many incredible people that bring the NFL to life, and to see kind of how it is from a different perspective. I've had so many years, 23 years playing on the field. I've watched so many games from the sideline view, and now I'm sitting up there in the booth and seeing it from a different perspective. And I've loved kind of just the whole process and diving into all these different teams. It's been a lot of growth for me in 1 year, and I really can't wait to see what it looks like in year 2 and way beyond that too. So I got 9 years left on my deal, and maybe longer. You never know. If Fox wants me, then I want to go. We'll just keep going because it's been really fun thus far.
I think sources close to Brady are your kids, and my guess is they're not leaking stuff to the internet. So,
well, there's Brady on Cowherd. Look, he won't be in the booth if the NFL owners don't want that to happen, because they have a process and rules in place on what he can and can't say, which is going to hinder his ability to be the best he can in the booth. It's going to make the product worse, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't prep the way
he can't be Troy Aikman pointing out things the way he does sometimes.
Cannot. I mean, you can't disparage players, the league, the refs, the owners. I mean, I don't know what you can do if you can't do that. I mean, as a viewer, I don't want everything to be, state-run media from the league, even though half the time it is. I don't want that from Brady. I want Tom Brady to be Tom Brady, like he was during his career.
Yeah.
Do you think he keeps it? I don't think he can. The NFL owners have spring meetings coming up, and I bet it'll be brought up then.
I mean, look, it's a lot of money.
And it's his deal.
It's a lot of money from Fox, to pay someone that, because of his entanglement with the league, can really only do like 70% of the job. Because I'd say 25, 30% of it is honestly criticizing things that are happening. And if you have to toe the line and you might get called into the office from the league if you say the wrong thing, that's a difficult tightrope to balance. Look, I fully believe the guy when he's on Cowherd saying that he wants to do it. He enjoyed it. I think those are all legitimate things. I think he likes this. He got better and better. Hey, that Commanders-Lions game was his best performance of the season.
It was good. And
I mean, he's going out with a bang here. He's going to be on the Super Bowl call also this year with Fox. But he was terrific in that game of calling things out, sort of early Romo-esque, the way he was calling things that were happening during that game, 12 men on the field, saying timeout, 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 and he caught it before everyone else.
That's a good point.
He's gotten a lot better. But, man, at some point, I feel like all sides have to kind of look around and say, what are we doing?
Well, because he's a 5% owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. But even more than that, he's the face of the franchise right now. He's running things for the Raiders. He's involved in the coaching search, all of that. He's the front man, so to speak. So with it, even if it was behind the scenes, until recently, you could not be an NFL owner and then own another pro franchise of the Big Four, right? Like, you had to put it in your wife's name or whatever it was. Again, like, there's
then Josh Harris came along.
I'm not sitting here saying I don't want Brady to do it. I do, but I don't know if it's just logistically how it works, unless you do it the way Chad just mentioned with the Romo presence, early Romo. But he's even been, he's tampered. He's been told clearly, don't call out the play before it happens every time. Brady could do that if he wanted to. There's no doubt in my mind he could. But I don't know if you're not bringing that element either, because half the audience doesn't like that. I don't know what you can do if you can't go to the production meetings, you can't do certain. Even if the team is okay with it, which happened this past season, if the team is okay with you being at the hotel and being in the production meeting, he's still not allowed to do it. So again, logistically, I just don't think it works. It connects like it would prior to him being an owner of the Raiders.
Yeah, and I think it's just something that all sides – I don't think this is just a unilateral one-side picks, but one side could pick, and that side would be the NFL.
Yeah.
Saying, yeah, you're an owner, you can't do it anymore.
And if he had to choose, what do you think he's choosing?
But I think that the Brady part of it, he's getting paid a ton of money to work these games. Of course he likes it. And I believe that he likes Kevin Burkhardt and Aaron Andrews and everyone else that he mentioned there. I think Fox has to look at it and say, are we getting the bang for our buck with a guy who can't criticize anyone during the games? And then the league's got to look at it, because if he does start to get a little bit more critical, that's going to be a problem for them.
And Fox is in a great spot. They have Tom Brady. And if Tom Brady's not allowed to do it, they have Greg Olsen.
Yeah.
You know, like that. It's a.
Or, I mean, look, there's only one Tom Brady in name and accomplishment in the league, so it's tough to replicate that. There are countless former NFL players that would be really good game analysts if
sure.
given a chance. Countless. We interview guys. We're going to talk to one later in the show today, Sean Merriman, terrific talker, and can talk the game very well. There are a lot of guys out there. If you want to go former player route, just throw a dart.
It's tough, though.
You can train them up. I mean, throw a dart. There's a lot of those guys out there that are very good at what they do.
They are.
I would love opportunities like that.
And you know where I'm headed here. It's tough to find those, though, that will call out other players. Brady, I think, will grow into that. Aikman is that dude.
But he can't do it now. That's,
right.
Yeah.
Aikman's that dude.
Yeah.
Romo
Aikman
is
doesn't
over
care
the
anymore.
top positive, but it's his way and his
Yeah, I like
his
him and Chris
presence.
Collinsworth because they're both like such positive
yeah.
type people that you just have fun watching
Yeah,
the game when
right.
they're a part of. There's something about the sound of Collinsworth's voice
Yes.
that I like. That's just, man, this is so much fun. National Football League, this is excitement. And he's good at talking about the game, but he's not often critical, but I don't need that from him.
Manning cast
You're
is
right,
fun.
though, about Brady. Brady is – that's a guy I look to be critical.
Yeah, because he
that role.
it's his standard.
Yeah.
You know, it's if you're he would be an awful coach because no one's ever going to play up to his level. You know, he's expecting that level from everyone. A great play caller, I'm sure, but the execution is what would be frustrating for him.
And Peyton Manning and Eli have that same
Yes.
fun feel to it.
But Peyton gets pissed off.
Yes, Peyton will criticize players all the time.
Yes,
It's in his own way.
So-
It's mainly out of offensive frustration because he's always rooting for the offenses, it feels like.
yes.
And then he'll get on to someone for doing something dumb
So-
and then talk about it. But it
So you're
works.
right. Like you're right about there are a lot of former players that could do it. Can they?
But there's only one Tom
like
Brady.
that. Yeah.
There's also, again,
If Brady's critical,
the
that's
name.
big.
Greg Olsen is terrific.
He's great.
Greg Olsen ain't Tom Brady. He's never going to be Tom Brady because Tom Brady is Tom freaking Brady.
Right.
And that's the advantage that he's always going to have,
We need
whether
to get it back on.
whether he's better than Greg Olsen or not. And he's not right now. I mean, there's no way to be. He hasn't done it as long, and he's not as good at it as Greg Olsen, but
No.
doesn't matter when you're Tom Brady.
No.
And that's why it's a huge card to play if you're Fox, that you've got the guy in Brady. So, look, there's advantages here. There's disadvantages. It's just going to take all sides coming to something of, all right, this is the way it's going to have to work, and now it's working the way it needs to.
Chad, the NFL controls all things that they're involved in, to the point where they're controlling what social media platforms certain teams are on. Patriots Unfiltered is a podcast and a show at their website for New England. Here is Fred Kirsch. He's the vice president of content for Kraft Industries and for the New England Patriots, discussing Bluesky and the fact that the Patriots are not allowed to be on that platform, yet the NFL has partnership agreements in place with several other social media platforms.
Please consider adding Bluesky to your social media outreach. NFL content/engagement is growing there with folks like Mina Kimes leading the way. Well, right now we're not allowed to. We had a account briefly on Bluesky, but the league asked us to take it down because it's not an approved social media platform for the NFL yet.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so we're
You guys
ready to
will have
go.
let me know what's going on over there.
Whenever the league gives us the green light, we'll get back on Bluesky.
It's interesting that the NFL
Let me know what's
is
going
not
on
allowing
over there.
that. Like
Mr. Boston chiming in.
there's several. By the way, Chad, the new general manager for the Titans has that Boston accent thick.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Borgonzi.
It
must be a
it tracks here
Harvard
in the
Bob.
South for sure. Not approved as a social media platform in the NFL. There are other teams that have accounts on there, or it's perceived that they do, but they're not verified. They're not listed on their actual websites. But all teams are, you have X, Meta, TikTok. All of those are approved through the league, just not Bluesky. And others, I'm sure. And part of it is the thought that the NFL is trying to get a partnership agreement long-term in place with X, and that there's going to be a centralized portal on X for the NFL, like where you can go to the NFL version of X, like their column or their page or whatever. that they're going to have. So
are they? What was Truth Social? Was that Trump's platform? Do the Patriots have an account on Truth Social? Is that an NFL approved?
I'm sure it's not, but
social media
I don't know.
platform. I get why the NFL is so strict on policies with teams and what they do and and all that. I just, if you think that you're going to reach some of your fans somewhere and it's not, the dark web, then go have at it. Like, I don't care.
So
if you want to have an account on Blue Sky,
wherever,
Purple Sky, Red Sky,
because it's monetary.
Whatever.
There's some partnership clearly with X and Musk. I think that's what is going on behind the scenes. But again, I'm with you, Chad. If you can reach a portion of your fan base, you want to. This is not for players. This is not for individuals. This is for the actual team, the organizations, is what we're hearing there from Patriots Unfiltered.
It reeks of kind of collusion, eventually with all of this. And I don't know. It's hard to know how the little guy ever wins in some of these battles. And Blue Sky is the little guy in this whole thing right now. I don't. And so if the NFL is saying you cannot put an account on there with the New England Patriots, and in the grand scheme of things, who cares? If this guy that runs the Patriots socials think they can reach some of their fans at that site.
Well, they had one and they were told to take it down. Yeah.
Again, if it's not something just awful that you're online, a part of, then who cares?
Yeah.
Wasted time.
I mean, they're on TikTok.
Yeah.
Isn't that awful?
They support Chinese regime, I guess, now. Also, is that what we're doing?
Yep. Now they have the extension.